Hello, John Talley here with Boats.net. Today we're going to be tackling the output shaft seals on our Mercury Verado 200. Now actually I used a kit that encompassed basically all the different input and output seals and gaskets and O-rings over the whole unit. Now we've already done the input shaft, we've already done the shift shaft, so now it's time to turn our attention to the output shaft. Let me show you that kit that I used and then we can get started. Now, as I mentioned earlier, with this one part number, you get a complete seal kit which addressed your input shaft housing and the seals and the O-rings and the gaskets. I mean, everything. And as you can tell, my table's looking a little bit bare because we've already done those projects. Now, if you need help doing that, why don't you look at this unit's playlist and we can walk you through how to do the different sections. Today, we're just going to be focused on, like I said, the output shaft. We've got the seals for it, we've got the O-rings. So all we've got to do now is pull the housing apart, get those broken down, and then we'll get reinstalled. So let me go grab a couple of tools and we'll dive into this. Now there are a few special tools you're going to need to gather up before you can tackle this project. First and foremost, you're going to need a good torque wrench, one that can at least go to 210 foot-pounds. You're going to need a bearing carrier remover. I like the equipment from Marine Tech. You're also going to need a retaining ring remover, and Marine Tech makes those as well. The other one that's really simple to pick up just about anywhere is just a slide hammer set. You just want to make sure that it configures these arms in a 180-degree fashion. Well, now that we've got our tools and our parts together, let's jump over there and knock this thing out. First thing you need to do is take out the check bolt or the vent up top, get it opened up, then go down below and remove the fill/drain plug. This stuff is pretty thick, so it's going to take a while for it to drain out. She's finished draining. Now we need to remove that retaining ring. And the tool we're going to use is a set from Marine Tech. And they actually have this adapter that goes to your ratchet or breaker bar. And to that you add whatever size tool you need to remove your particular ring. So now that I've got this, let me go put this together and we'll see if we can break this thing loose. This ring, it actually looks to be in pretty good shape. It doesn't have the typical corrosion that I see on a saltwater boat. This may have been a freshwater motor from what I can tell. If yours is horribly corroded and no amount of torque will break it loose, they actually have these little indentions in the ring. And what you would do is drill those out with, I don't know, a 5/16 and actually break the ring apart to do it. You need to be careful if you have to go that far and not damage the threads on the housing itself. If you drill through those points, it's fairly easy to get in there with a pick and then break it down. This one, hopefully it will come apart and I won't have to do that. We have our tool set up and ready to go, but before we come in here and try to remove it, there is a tab on a washer right here that we need to bend back. This actually holds that retaining ring in place where it can't work its way out. Let's get it bent back and then we'll grab the tool and see if we can break this thing loose. I only saw the one, but let's look around one more time to make sure there's no other ones that are bent down. That looks like it. Let's grab that removal tool and see if this thing will bust loose. So let's see what she's got. Look at there. It looks like this one is going to come apart easily, which is not always the case. So what we're going to use is the Marine Tech tool, but what we're going to do is actually reconfigure it a little bit. It's designed to reach in like this for most of the different lower units. What we did is we reversed the center section and we're going to flip it the other direction where these are actually facing out. When I say these, I mean these little arms. And that is going to grab to the outside of the carrier and then pull it through. Now my left side has a good bite up into this section. This right side, it is not holding on by much. So what we're going to do is just add this little door stopper, if you will, just to put some pressure out. A little bit of a workaround, but I think this is going to work. All right, before we release it all the way, I want to go ahead and tilt it down because there's going to be some debris and junk, and I don't want that to fall into the gear case. There we go. There go my ego. Yeah, that's kind of trash that we don't want to go back inside. There we go. Make sure you do not lose this ring. Now we want to carefully clean out the debris without blowing anything further up into the lower unit. So here's where you just need to be patient, get you a little bit of a contact cleaner, and just methodically get it to start spraying out. And what we're going to do next is actually clean up the output shaft because there's a fair amount of debris on it. A little bit more to clean up on the splines on the output shaft, then we can turn our attention to the bearing carrier. Now let's turn our attention to the bearing carrier, and with this particular setup from Mercury, we actually have to remove the reverse gear. And to do so, we're going to clamp down on it with the vise right here. I'm going to get a slide hammer puller with a couple of arms in 180 degrees from each other, reach in there and pop that booger out. Now, let's reach in there. Spread those apart. See if we can get it to pop loose now. Yahtzee. Bearing feels good. That one looks to be in good shape. So it looks like we can just get this cleaned back up, knock out those old seals, and then put in the new ones. So everybody's cleaned up and good to go. I've inspected the gears, I've looked at the bearings. All of that feels really good. So the only thing we need to replace is just the seals. Now to do that, we're going to use a punch to knock them out. Then we'll get a driver to actually push these back into place. Now, of course, Mercury has this big system of like 3 different special tools that they are requiring to push it back in there. But no, we're going to find a way around that because basically we just need to make sure they need to sit flush and all the way back up into the end of the carrier. So let's go ahead and knock out the existing seals. Then we'll make sure it's clean, get a little bit of Loctite on our new ones, and then get them driven into place. There they are. Just a little bit of grease to clean out. Let me take care of that, and then we'll get the new ones pushed in there. We've got it cleaned out, and here's what's about to happen. We're going to drive in the first seal facing this direction after we put a little bit of Loctite on it until it bottoms out. Then we'll put Loctite on the second seal, and it actually goes into the reverse. They end up being inside the carrier like this. Now, as I mentioned before, they've got this elaborate, they being Mercury, have this elaborate setup where you pull this into position. We're just going to use a standard driver. I'm actually using one from Motion Pro. The real trick here is it needs to be really close to the outside of the seal without going past it. Now, 40 millimeter, that should do it. Put some on the edge of the seal and then go inside the carrier itself. Now this is going to be a little tricky to get it started because it's way down in there and we are out here. So we're just going to go ahead and drop it into place and then get it configured to where it's facing with the bottom toward me. So what I'm looking at is this surface, and we're just going to get it to bottom out against this bottom edge of the carrier itself. Don't overdo that because we don't want to damage it. So we're looking good so far. A little bit more Loctite on seal number 2. We'll drop it in, get it squared up, and I'll drive it in. I think I've got it because the back of each seal is flushed up next to each other. We're going to put grease in between the two seals, and then we're also going to add a fair amount to the tapered race on the inside, because before we start to put the reverse gear back on, that bearing needs to already be in there. Otherwise, you're going to be pulling it back apart. Down you go. So we're getting ready to press the reverse gear back in, added some grease around the inside of the bearing as well as to the reverse gear itself. Got our new O-ring ready to go and our thrust washer, but before we actually press this back in, we want to make sure that this bearing is still seated all the way inside of the carrier, because I've actually pulled these apart and it shifted out just enough, and guess what? That threw off my shimming by a long way. Not a good thing. So let's get a large bearing driver, goes all the way out to the edge of this bearing, make sure she's seated all the way down, then we'll release it, get our thrust washer in, our O-ring in, and then press in our reverse gear. Yeah, she was down, but I'd rather be sure. Now what we're going to do, go and get our O-ring on, our thrust washer. And the way we're going to drive this in without damaging it, use a little bit of wood. And when you're doing this, do it slowly. If you get even the slightest inkling that it's going a little bit cockeyed, stop. Pop it back out and try again. Touchdown. First, you put in the thrust spacer, then your shim, and now we can bring over the housing. Make sure that your drain bolt is down at the bottom. Touchdown. Let's get our ring back in. This edge facing up. There we go. Our retaining ring was actually in pretty good shape. I just cleaned it up. Make sure when you're putting it back together that the off is actually facing out towards you. Now it's time to torque it down, and we're taking this to 210 foot-pounds. All right, we've got it bottomed. Everything's still feeling good. So let's go ahead and put some muscle on it. Woohoo! Now we just need to reach in and bend that tab back into the groove to where it'll hold that retaining ring in place. Not that I'm worried about it moving, but this will absolutely make sure that it can't back out. So that's going to wrap this one up. We've now completed all the different seals and O-rings that were in that one part number for the seal kit for this lower unit. The only thing I have left to do now is just to refill it and then remount it to the outboard. Now if you need help doing that, why don't you reference this unit's playlist, and then I can help you along on that. And if you need any parts for your boat, why don't you come see us at boats.net and we can get you taken care of. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the section below and I'll do my best to answer them. And hey, if you like what you see, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you can keep up with whatever I'm working on next. We just want to say thank you for shopping here with us at boats.net, and we will see you in the next video. Y'all have a great day.